And so if you buy up akiya, get a used house, get some used equipment, that'll cost you $10,000 maybe. And so for a pretty reasonable amount of money, you can make like a local business, right? That also functions as like a community center. That's really what I see, the intersection of akiya and music and tsunamis.
This is kind of where it all converges.
Well, it's potential. That's what it is.
Hey there, and thank you for tuning in. We're excited to bring you another great conversation today. If you like the show and want to support us, please hit the subscribe button so we can keep bringing you great content week after week. And if you're feeling extra generous, give this video a like and share your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you so much. And now, let's get into it. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today we welcome Matt. You're the founder and CEO of Akiyas. It's not your first company. It's one that you're currently working at and on, growing using data and technology in the field of real estate here in Japan. Right. Very exciting thing, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about that and much more. But I'm curious a little bit to kind of go back about your journey to Japan and what brought you here in the first place.
It's kind of a long story, but it involves a lot of rock and roll. So I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Also, thank you very much for having me here. I started getting into music when I was pretty young. Started playing guitar when I want to say I was 8. But, soon enough you become a teenager and start rebelling and you find out about rock and roll and punk rock and all of these things. And so I started sneaking out of my house late at night to go to underground punk rock concerts. And parents didn't like that much at first, but after a few years, it's a strange story. So musically, I perform a lot of kind of very heavy metal. I listen to predominantly basically like hip hop, ambient, and a lot of psychedelia. And so the story specifically is I was in math class in, I think, 7th grade. And there's a shoegaze, which is like a kind of poppy, dreamy, sort of spacey sounding kind of genre band called Slowdive, who I absolutely adore to this day. Their album Souvlaki Space Station is the name of it.
Souvlaki Space Station.
Yes.
It's a delicious Greek dish. Interesting.
But in space. It's wonderful.
Oh, right.
And so I'm sitting next to my friend in math class. We're talking about Souvlaki Space Station. And somehow that reminded him of this album that had just come out by a very aggressive band called Converge. That album is called Jane Doe. And it changed the game entirely of what hardcore punk and all of these things were. It's very angular, very complex. I mean, I remember distinctly listening to it for the first 10 times, and I just did not where's the rhythm? What is there a melody here? Sort of thing. But I listened to it a bunch and finally figured out oh, that's the rhythm there. And kind of got into punk rock sort of via that. And so I don't know, a year or two later, I started going to concerts as well. And we're getting back to the Japan thing because I still don't know why. I think his name was Manny, Manny. He was a booker in Pittsburgh. And every summer vacation when I was in high school, all these Japanese punk and metal bands were coming through Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's not, it's not a zero city, but it's not a very big city. I always equate it to it's like Sendai.
Okay,
right?
The Sendai of America.
Yeah, it's a large city, but it's don't mistake it for New York. And so international bands don't really make a habit of coming through there, and yet all of these, and it's Japan, Japanese punk. Why is this coming through here? And I didn't even know that they were performing those. So I was just, on a Friday night, you just go to a show and see who's there. The first one I saw, Quill, Quill. They were from Koenji. The vocalist Noise Man. Still don't know his real name. Still don't know where he is for a number of years. In fact, he was the first guy to host me in Tokyo.
So the guy that came to perform was this band in Pittsburgh actually hosted you when you later came to. That's cool.
And then to this day, I think it was in 2016, I hosted a band. So I do a concert series called The Blood Right Passage sort of thing, whatever. But one of the bands that I really like and have for quite a long time, Nepenthes, Nepenthes, Nepenthes is how it's pronounced in Japanese. Been friends with them for a long time. And so we're at the after party, sitting down, having beers, having drinks. And I'm speaking with their vocalist, Negi-san, who's just got this, like his voice is just like the most distinctive thing I've heard. And we're talking, he kind of just says like, yo, man, like I totally forget, like you're American, but like where are you from in the States? And I was like, oh, Pittsburgh. And I said that and he immediately goes, Roboto. How do you know the name? That's the club that I would go to when I first started seeing these Japanese bands at, the Mr. Roboto Project. And he was like, oh no, I used to be in a band called Assault. I was like, wait a minute. Did you tour in 2001 on your second album release tour in Pittsburgh at the Mr. Roboto Project in summer, in like August? And he was like, yeah, I played that show. I was 24 or whatever. And I was like, yeah, well, I was 14 at that show and I still have the t-shirts and everything. So it's just like this crazy halfway across the world, 10, 15 years later after the fact, I'm booking the band that is kind of like responsible for me coming over here.
So that show that he performed at when you were 14 is kind of the first click you had with Japan, where you're like, oh, there's cool punk rock music coming out of Japan. I want to know more about it.
Yeah, and I mean, sure, the genre itself I was interested in, but there really was an energy about it that was just completely different as, I mean, like a 14-year-old American, like at 14 years old, no matter where you're growing up, you're like used to the local energy, as it were. But the first time you see something that's like sufficiently foreign, that's also energetic, it like makes kind of an impression.
So how did you end up, or what made you then decide to come to Japan?
Well, I mean, I started studying Japanese, and so that led me to study Japanese history in college. And then I also studied German philosophy, which is just an awful combination of majors for the job market once you graduate.
Just like all the names of Japanese, German philosophers are coming up. I'm like, that must have been interesting.
Yeah, well, mostly like Kant, right? I was so I graduate and I can tell you about specifically Emperor Go-Daigo, who you probably have never heard of.
No.
So he was in power from 1320 to 1333. And his whole thing was, around that time, all of the Tokyoites were coming to Kyoto. And they were, Basara is the name that they were, like their nickname or whatever. They were, barbarians and like warriors and wrecking everything. And nobody liked this. It's kind of actually similar to Kyoto right now.
Yeah, basically, history repeats itself.
Yeah, kind of. And strangely enough, the akiya thing sort of, I could weave it in here as well. But Go-Daigo was like, well, look, I hate these, like, this is not a good situation either, but look, what are we going to do? Like, we can't just kill them all. So land tax reform was his big thing. And again, this is why I couldn't get a job after school, because this is what I would go into the interview and talk about instead of practical skills. Anyway, the Bakufu didn't like that. He tried to do all these reforms that would have worked, in my opinion. But, the powers that be pushed back. He got ousted once, came back, got ousted again, got exiled to, Sarogashima, I think. Or no, further south in Tottori. Anyway, he got exiled. And then the Ashikaga Bakufu came in, and about 50 years after that, we have Warring States period. Because you guys kicked out the only guy who's doing the right thing to fix the Basara problem. You kicked him out and put in the old school people, and then you get Warring States.
For a long time.
For like 200 years, man. Like, that was not a good... that is, in my opinion, that is like quite possibly the most meaningful moment in the history of Japan.
Interesting.
Is when that history like split. If Go-Daigo had remained in power, it is my sincere belief that there wouldn't have been Sengoku Jidai. Zero Sengoku Jidai.
It's interesting, right? How looking back at history and studying it, you can trace like history to specific turning points where things can go either way, and a path is chosen and there's no going back.
Yeah, you can't reverse it. It's not one of those things like, ooh, I broke a finger, or I can fix. Nope, like you can't walk that one back.
But in the moment, for anyone involved in that decision, impossible to foresee the 200 years
Absolutely.
of warring states.
Yeah, it's kind of like AI now, probably.
we'll be able to look back on that in a few years.
Yeah.
But you have that knowledge, and so you go to apply for jobs, and they're
That's
like,
just
no.
worthless.
Yeah.
But I spoke Japanese, and so like a bunch of Americans, you apply for teaching English over in Japan. So I did that.
So nearing 20 years now.
Yeah, I did. I moved back to the States from 2016 to 2019. So I think I've got a grand total of like 14 years under my belt right now. And
Where did you move to?
oh, okay. You want to talk about pivot points in
Yeah.
history? This is another good one. So the company I was working for gave me the option. Basically, the first place that they suggested, like, do you want to go there? I could say yes or no. If I said no, then they'd give me another one. But then I would have to, no matter what, take that. And so I told them, hey, like Shiga was pretty good. And of course, they come back to me and say Chichijima, which is down in Ogasawara, like the 28-hour ferry ride from Tokyo island chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like Shiga.
Yeah, right.
It's like the reverse. You had the lake, now you have the ocean. and you
Yeah,
kind
like
of-
all of the ocean.
yeah.
Sort of thing. And so at first I was a little bit like gobsmacked by that. Not even that, because that didn't even occur to me. That wasn't like, oh, I asked for Tokyo, but you gave me Kyoto. Or I asked for, Hikone, but you gave, like, those were all within the realm of
Kind
possibility.
of felt like you were exiled, like Odaigo.
A little
to
bit,
that
a
island.
little bit.
Yeah.
But this was the first one that they gave me, right? So I had the choice. And so my first response was basically like, huh? You can do that? There's a place that exists? So I couldn't really wrap my head around it. And I did, and I was starting to come around to it because like I'd have my own house. It wouldn't just be like an apartment. There's like a farm or something. It's like the Galapagos Islands, and it's kind of this dreamy sort of island paradise. I still haven't been. I really want to go. So that was sounding good, but then I started thinking about like the female population and how many possible people I could like the dating pool, right? How many women would be like available women are on an island that is only 20 kilometers. Right. And I think the number, I whittled it down to something like there were potentially 80 like girlfriends that were possible, which didn't sound like, and it's a very small, like everybody talks.
Yeah.
Like that seemed like.
Rural area.
Yeah. That seemed like a little like, so I said no. And they were like, okay, that's fine. And because of that, then I waited a little bit longer and they gave me actually Miyako. Not Miyako-jima, and not the old name of Kyoto, which is also Miyako, but Miyako up in Iwate. I remember getting that too and thinking, it was a very confusing process, honestly, like name-wise. Like, I've heard of Miyako, like that sounds like... And of course, I was remembering Japanese history, and that Kyoto used to be called Miyako, and so I was like, oh, why are they calling it Miyako? I thought it was called Kyoto now. But of course, that wasn't where I was headed. And so I get on the train, and it's way up in Iwate, so that's like right below Aomori. Arrive at night in the middle of this like very rural, basically not knowing where the hell I've
Just
been
the bus arrives in the dark and drops you off at this interchange, and there's nothing around.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of wrap my head around that, and I'm living there for about a year and a half. Took a little bit getting used to it. It was a really nice town. I ended up having like a band there. Taught at 2 schools, which were, pretty easygoing. Pretty like maybe not idyllic. That's probably too strong, but like nice, relaxing, easygoing, slow life was the word that my friends would like spray paint on their like bedroom wall and things like that. So yeah, that was good for about a year and a half. But I got there 2009, and so a year and a half later was 3/11 when the tsunami came. And Miyako was the city that had, I think it's the tallest. I've said previously it's the tallest, and then Wikipedia changed the numbers that were so. It was still absolutely massive. Like the video of the tsunami is
the wave crashing in.
Yeah, that's like where we were. Like that was my neighborhood. So I was there on that day.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Everything got completely wrecked. Basically spent 6 weeks as a homeless front responder, scooping shovers, shoveling, dorodashi, shoveling garbage and junk and removing things and saving people.
How did that day unfold for you?
311? Intensely. Let's see. We went out the night before because actually it was a Friday, and every Friday I was teaching at one of the other schools. They had just finished testing. And so I got a call from what do they call them? Like teacher.
Supervisor? Or?
Yeah, supervisor, let's say, saying like, hey, like we just finished out. We literally have nothing for you to do tomorrow. Like take the day off, which was great. So, I called my friends up and said, hey, let's go to the izakaya and whatnot. And then I woke up at like 11 or something the next day. I got back to my spot. I got back to my place at 11, which was quite literally, there was my apartment, there was the road, there was the tsunami wall, and there was the ocean.
So directly an oceanfront apartment.
Yeah, right. If I opened my front door and ran, I could jump into the ocean, I don't know, in like 15 seconds. Like it was right there. So went home, took a nap, got up, made an omelet, was watching a movie, and that's when the earthquake started.
So you're watching that movie, you're sitting there, and it starts shaking. But it's not just like a small shake.
It was a pretty thump kind of thing, but then it kept building. But of course, like 3 days prior, there was also, I think it was a 7.9.
Mm-hmm.
That one frightened me. And I was also, for some reason, at home that day too, skipping school. That one I ran downstairs to go knock on the door of my landlord's to ask, like, what do we do? Landlord came to the door and was just like, he was very like, like what? This? No. And I remember he told me like, you'll know when, in Japanese is what he said, but the English translation of what he said that day was like, you'll know when you need to run.
So 3 days stay there.
3 days later, I definitely did not. So yeah, on 311, it started shaking because I had already ran kind of 3 days prior. I didn't want to look like an idiot again. And so I waited for like a minute, maybe. But then everything just started falling over and whatnot. And then I went outside. And then I remember looking over and the warehouses, kura, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next to us I still remember it was like they were chomping, like a monster's mouth, just like opening and closing. And that was the sign of like, oh, actually, okay, that was the sign of if buildings look like they're about to eat you,
time to get away from them.
Time to run. And so that was on the second floor, and there was like a gangway, like a metal gangway, and I had my neighbors next to me. So I ran past their door, but I stopped because I was like, well, there was a husband and wife couple who lived there, slammed on the door to see if anybody was home, and she kind of answered really timidly, very, very visibly shaken, no pun intended, but like frightened.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just like grabbed her more or less, ran down the rest of the plank gangway, down the stairs, and then to ground level where, like part of the walls had crumbled. Mm-hmm. And I just remember staring down at that and thinking like, oh, geez, that was a really big, earthquakes don't normally do, like small earthquakes don't do that. That must have been a big earthquake. And then taking a picture. For some reason, like I still have the tactile memory of hitting that silver button in the center of like the D-pad and the sound. But yeah, so the tsunami sirens were sounding. And this actually, even to this day, is like a point of contention. Not even, like I'm actually angry, I think, about it. In that so every week, this probably happens across all of Sanriku. But they have like tsunami drills. And so every week you'll hear the tsunami keiho is literally that is what they say. Tsunami keiho, wow, 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 tsunami keiho. And it's Tohoku as well. So it's a relatively aged population. There's probably some people who are relatively hard of hearing. They hear the tsunami keiho all the time. They don't pay attention to it. There was already 3 days prior a pretty big earthquake that didn't have a tsunami and also didn't have the old tsunami keiho. But the difference between Tsunami Keiho and old Tsunami Keiho is that's maybe kind of difficult or easy to miss. And so I wonder if there were some people who just kind of brushed it off because they couldn't hear the of old Tsunami.
And so they didn't leave in time, or they didn't. So you're on the street at that time. Your landlord is like, okay, we gotta go. Your friend texts you back like, Nigero, and you're like, okay, I have to get out of here.
Yeah,
the water probably by that time starts slowly kind of pulling back.
So you know about it. I didn't know about that. That was the most ridiculous part. Well, not.
I guess growing up in Pittsburgh, you don't have too many either earthquake nor tsunamis.
Yeah, none, right? Of course, Hokusai is basically the only education that I had about, I knew that tsunamis existed, and I knew that there was that picture of the tsunami, so that must be what all tsunamis look like. And nothing about the pull. And so, but even before that, we turned around, we were running up the hill behind our house because my landlords, the condos, were friends with the head priest at the top of the temple, or the top of the temple at the top of the hill, the Zenninji. And so we were running up there because it was, the highest place we could be. But halfway up, Kazuko-san, my landlord, turns to me and says hey, passport, did you get that? Of course I didn't, so I ran back down, which is not a good idea. Can't recommend it. Went back into my apartment. People talk about go bags. Unless you've been in a serious disaster, you don't know how stupid you're going to become. Go bags are very good.
It's interesting because the go bag is also only useful if you are at the place where you have your go bag when it's time to go.
Well, yeah, right. But so I ran in. I did get my passport. Right, that was the mission.
You get the passport. You go back up the hill to the temple.
Right. Well, no, but so I'm in my apartment and I'm thinking, I don't even know what I'm thinking yet. Right, but while I grabbed this, maybe I should get other things. The thing that really, so there's two things that stick out. The dumb thing that I did get and the really helpful thing that I didn't get. So the dumb thing that I did get was a totally dead iPod. And no charger or headphones.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, somewhere. I think it's back in the States actually. But that thing probably still exists.
So you did get that out of the room, and the thing you didn't get was
a bicycle. My bicycle. Oh. That would have been immensely helpful in the days after this. So I grabbed basically a bunch of useless stuff, and I was wearing sneakers. I could have gotten boots. I could have gotten a coat or more coats because it was March. It was cold,
especially up in Iwate.
Yeah, so many things that you could have, but your head just everything.
Grab and go.
Yeah, right. So I did that, ran back up. Yeah, sirens and people running and stuff, but then it started coming in, the wave. And that, again, it's one of those dilation things. Watching the videos, but you've never seen anything so big. As it was coming in, the level of debris started small, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So cars and shacks or small things. But then trucks, and then 18-wheelers, and then houses, and then, the fishing vessels that were way out to sea and stuff started coming in. But our tsunami wall, if I remember, was 4 meters, 3.5, 4 meters high. I think where we were, so that video, I'm pretty sure is about 8 to 9 meters. And the breach, though, that's when things really changed. I distinctly remember across Miyako Bay is what we're talking about. That was the industrial district, and there was this big warehouse that had, I believe it was I want to say it had a red roof and a green, the building itself was green, and it was almost funny, just watching this wall kind of standing there big and strong and being hey, tsunami, you can't get past.
Gone.
And then just bam, right through it. And I watch, that's when the water hit the city, not when the water came back to where the water is already supposed to be. That's when it breached. and two, watching the strangeness of all that water coming in, but then all of this like dust from when it just like totally collapsed the whole thing, just like not popping up, but clouds of dust and debris and soot hovering all over that.
Do you realize at that time, on top of that hill, what just happened? Like the magnitude of the event? I mean, 3/11, that was a date that everyone, your apartment building probably gone by that time. The only thing you have with you are the things you grabbed or didn't, and the things you didn't grab washed away by the water.
Yeah. Because, I mean, consider this. We had a 10-day blackout. We had zero information for 10 days. We had no cell networks. We had no internet. We had no postal service. We had no trains. We had no buses. We had no cars. We had no nothing. Right. And so, I'm guessing that at least for those, we did have a crank radio. So we could hear some things, mostly about Fukushima. Right. I mean, I spent the first like all of those 6 weeks just in the shit, really.
Are you even able to let your family know that you're fine? And
no. So actually, my girlfriend from Hikone, who we had broken up, she is the one who had discovered that I was still, somebody had like taken a picture or something, and I really don't know how this happened, but yeah, she had let my parents know that, oh no, he's been seen alive.
Wow.
Sort of thing. But yeah, it was I think it was 10 days of just zero communications whatsoever. And yeah.
So you come to Japan to teach English, decide to not go to the island and go to Miyako instead. And a year and a half later, your life is washed away along with those of many other people. At that point, I imagine, after you kind of make it through those weeks of, you mentioned being homeless, you mentioned kind of just cleaning up the city, find whatever is left to find. And you must be thinking, okay, what do I do now? Like, my belongings are gone. I don't have a house here. The school I was teaching at is also gone.
Well, I think I'm going to stick on this for a minute because I think it's actually really important. Like, it's a good message, but it's also like very much a part of my kind of trajectory is, so day one, the tsunami, you don't really know what's happening. You're just in it, right? You're just reacting, right? There's very little kind of comprehension of the crazy things that happened that day and so many others. Like there was this guy, I don't know how he didn't die. I guess he was in his house when the tsunami hit, because he was just swimming around in his underwear, screaming for his mother. And we're like up here at the temple, like looking down at him and like, and he's like, get out of there. And like, he must have been like 50, like not a young guy. And there were 3 firefighters, like off-duty firefighters, and then me and my landlords. So they somehow got down the hill, got on top of a collapsed roof, found some long stick, I don't know what it was, pulled the sad soul up onto the roof, and he's just like screaming for his mother, because I guess his mother was in the house, not just like he's being a baby, but like, no, his mom was right there. And then me and Hiroshi-san come down with just as many blankets as we could bring, wrap them up, make like a sling. Human bodies are really heavy, especially when they're just inert and not helping. And so we like dragged him up the hill, got him into just some house that had like a kerosene heater. There was this other guy who, we had to help him get basically his life saved, because it's northern Japan. Everybody keeps cash, like maybe not under their mattress, but hidden somewhere.
Somewhere in a house, maybe in a box in the garden.
Yeah,
or something.
so just like taking rocks and just like smashing open things that, a 90-year-old, widower or whatever, like just can't get into because it's, for whatever reason, it's inaccessible now. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, had like a Titanic moment with his girlfriend of like, they got hit. All of them got hit by the wave. He managed to pull his, kind of a long story, but like he had his mom in one arm and then his girlfriend in the other arm. They got hit by the wave. This is right near where we were, but a little bit further out where there was no tsunami wall. So basically like the wharf. Somehow he grabbed onto, I guess, like a floating roof. His mom was already gone. And then he got up and was trying to pull his girlfriend up onto the roof as well, but she slipped away. And so she's dead as well. Finding bodies, like the whole Jietai experience, marking X's and O's. Are you familiar with that? Well, that works in like, so if there's an X, so there's three things you're looking for in a recently disastered spot. And well, you're looking for bodies is what you're looking for. Right. And you need to mark where they are. And so there's X's and there's O's and then there's nothing, right? X means there's no body there. So it's clear. Right. O means there's a body in there. Somebody's like, get the medics here. And then there's the ones that aren't marked. Those were the really creepy ones because they're undefined.
You don't know what is inside.
Yeah. And so you just constantly, so we'd go in, I mean, be it restaurants, be it houses. I remember digging through houses, which was just like really tragic because, you know, you find photo albums and probably like 2 or 3 weeks after we wanted to go, Yochi wanted to take us to go and basically find like his mother's heirlooms and stuff in her house. So we got there and there was this car. It was just like some giant beast had just like thrown a car at the house.
At the house.
And it was just like stuck in it.
Like we see in the movies.
Yeah, like an arrow sort of thing. And so there were like 5 of us. And this is right around the time the self-defense force showed up to help out. And probably got like 5 of them too. And we got one of their trucks, like tow trucks. But we couldn't get the truck itself close enough to the car that was stuck in the house.
Too much debris around.
Yeah. And so we lashed some ropes to the car and it was like 10 of us tug of warring
the car out of the house.
And like talk about an absurd situation to be in. Like that, very rarely do people do that. And so we're struggling trying to pull this damn car out of the damn house to get the damn photo albums and stuff. And finally, it just gives, right? And all of us just collapse together. And I distinctly, it was weird. There was actually a lot of laughing and like jokes. Nakiwarai, I think is the word that they call it.
I mean, the emotions in these kind of days must have been just
well,
all
I
over the
mean,
place.
Truthfully, there's like 2 things that you can do. It's either physical exhaustion or like beer, really. And so, I mean, we spent every day, what, it was like 7 a.m. to 5. It was, you know, a job is how we treated it. Scooping stuff. I've moved any number of like industrial sized refrigerators. I've defloored countless, again, like restaurants, houses and whatnot. Yeah, just like all of those things. But if you weren't getting just like totally exhausted in one way or another, it's you don't want that.
It's
right?
too overwhelming.
Yeah. So it's not even, oh my God, we have to help everybody. Of course you're thinking that, but it's also like if you just have a moment to sit down and like think about where you're at, that's not a good, you really don't want to be there. And so just like keep going, keep moving on, right? But the first day, you're not thinking, you don't know what's up. The second day, so the first 3 days for us, we were stuck. There was entirely too much rubble around it. We just couldn't get out. I think the second day was the worst because that's when you're hit full force with, oh, this is what's happened, right? And to be honest, you couldn't even, because literally beyond what my eyes could see was destroyed. Everything was destroyed. And then some, right, for miles. And so that's like the definition of the sublime, except it's a really negative one.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in a world of shit is more or less the realization there. And then the third day, though, somehow, I think it was very appropriate or maybe even lucky that we happened to run to like a Buddhist temple for this. Because, you know, you don't really need material belongings.
No.
right? Especially at a Buddhist temple. And so, and because we were staying at a Buddhist temple, every morning at 6 a.m., we were going to Buddhist services.
Still, during
yeah,
those times.
the monk was the guy that we ran to go see. And so, yeah, that was a bizarre. And this was like a gilded, like temples are really golden, right? Golden and purple with, the bells and the chanting and stuff. And so, like, having that experience in the middle of
Everything else that's going on.
right, was powerful. I can say that. And then, on the third day, somehow, you rifle through these emotions and thought patterns and stuff very quickly. And so I remember on the second day, just like trying to add up, like, oh my God, I had my guitar and my computer and some suits. And how much did that cost? How am I ever going to buy any of that again? And just kind of making it worse for myself. And then somehow, for some reason, 24 hours later, on the third day, because every day we'd come out of the temple and we're like, it's almost like the Lion King of like Mufasa holding up Simba and saying, look at my king, look at your kingdoms, my son. But it's a kingdom of destruction. And so we did, like, literally at sunrise, Buddhist temple, Buddhist service, go outside, have our hot tea, because we did have tea. We'd had very little food, and I can talk about that as well. Literally almost like, having your morning tea and looking at the sunrise, except this terrible situation. But on the third day thinking, well, I mean, what? I've got community, I've got a little bit of food, I've got fire, I've got a roof over my head, I've got this coat, I found some boots. Like, I don't know, could be worse.
Could be worse, yeah.
Right. And I think that today still very much colors how I think I conduct a lot of things myself, both personally as well as in business, of, bare bones bootstrapped. You don't need excess. In fact, oftentimes it's what'll kill you.
You go through all these emotions. You go through all these weeks of working your way out of that experience. Comes a time the water clears, and what do you decide to do next?
I left, I think it was April 16th. So that's what, 5 weeks? Like 4.5, 5 weeks, something like that. And my company at the time discovered that I was alive and was basically just like, oh yeah, disaster zones, you need to, like, Tokyo, come get to Tokyo. That's also like such a story. So, so I get to Morioka Station though, and it's an overnight bus to Tokyo. And after like 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, in 100% like the disaster zone, totally shell shocked, get into the bus, and I think we left at like 11:30 p.m. And I kind of fall asleep, and I think it was it was like 1:30 a.m., maybe 2. It was late. And I, opened my eyes, and I'm like, oh, okay, yes, it's not moving. Like, what's going on? Like, hey, can somebody... That's when the bus driver says, oh, there was an aftershock and the highway is broken once again. We have to go back to Morioka Station. And keep in mind, Morioka is still blacked out, right? And businesses aren't open. So it's like 3:30 a.m., 4 a.m. in a blacked out, maybe not metro, but like city where there are no hotels that are open. Nothing's open. All I have are, my backpack, basically. And I'm like, what the hell, man? And then miraculously, I get a call. Again, it's like 3:30 or 4 a.m. From one of my friends who lives in Morioka. And I didn't tell anybody that because I was just like, oh my God, gotta go. So he had no way of knowing that, number one, I was in Morioka, or I was passing through, or even that I was on a bus that is now coming back to Morioka Station. I get this phone call from him being like very audibly drunk and just like, yeah, dude, like, what are you up to? I'm like, well, I'm at the station. I was just on a bus and it broke. So he had to come back. And he was like, oh, dude, I'm like 45 minutes away. I'll see you soon. Click. I'm like, what was all right, like, I guess I'll see what happens. And then, so everybody else disperses, and it's just me in this very eerie and beautiful, because it was very clear and like still winter night with a pretty full moon. And then from the distance, have you ever seen The Warriors? It's like a late 70s, like New York gang movie.
No.
So there's a bad guy in it who he takes 3 beer bottles and puts them on his fingers and he like clinks them together.
Okay.
Right. And it's like a very iconic scene. And so from very far in the distance, I hear this same like bottle clinking. Like what? And it's kind of like a monster. Like what is that? And of course, it's my friend who has a backpack full of bottles of like that I guess he scavenged or something. And so he picks me up. We go and have like literally a tequila sunrise, drinking tequila, sitting next to the river in Morioka. And then go back to his place, say hi to his wife and his newborn. They're totally fun. Like Morioka wasn't hit by the wave or anything. But yeah, and then kind of like pass out there for a day, get on a bus the next day and finally make it down to Tokyo.
So that was quite the journey.
Yeah.
And I imagine this whole experience is 5 weeks. Big turning point in your life.
Yeah, massive. It sucked. But I saw a lot of power. I mean, like human power. And honestly, like something to believe in. I think, and I mean, I was jaded then. I'm even more jaded now. But seeing people help each other when they don't have anything and not doing it for, clicks or some kind of clout, but because that's just like, why would you not do that? Nobody's even questioning it. Mm-hmm. There were people who came down. I still don't know how the punks came from Sapporo. I don't know how they got there. Must have been by boat, I guess. Because again, like the roads were dead, the trains, like everything was destroyed. And they showed up with grills and burgers. So these punk rockers, right, are in the disaster zone. Burger is its name. Flipping burgers and giving it out to like all the homeless people.
The people came together.
Yeah. And I mean, like it happens. It actually happens. I definitely had never seen that. I don't think I've seen it since. It really kind of sucks that it had to happen in those circumstances, which begs the question, well, wait. Why can't we have like a good circumstance in which everybody comes together? Because if you can do the stuff that we did with quite literally zero resources, and exhausted the whole time, and fearing for our life at pretty much, every corner, you can do the shit that we did then, but with resources and in comfort. Man, the things that we could get done.
Is that kind of when the ideas for entrepreneurship and maybe kind of starting something in that direction began to germ?
So there's the tsunami, get to Tokyo, start playing in bands. And so I started cataloging the bands and the venues and the events and like basically just databasing, but relevant info about the scene, right? And so not all music, right? But the stuff that I work with. Because again, if I want to book a show, I need to know what dates people are playing, what venues are open, what they tend, like some venues are very specific genre-wise.
And if you need to call them up every time to confirm, and then you need to confirm back, you lose like a lot of time.
Exactly. And so by the unexpected result of that though was we basically made like big data analytics on underground, like extreme music. So like talking about annual, like how much money is moving through this cultural ecosystem, what venues, I can tell you right now, 46 of 47 prefectures in Japan have active concert venues and like music. They might not be huge, right? But they're active, right? They're not documented. I'll tell you, it's Akita prefecture is the only one that I can't.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
It's Akita. That's not to say that there isn't anything in Akita. It's just, I can't find it. Right. And so just lack of evidence is not evidence of lack sort of thing. The types, as an American, and especially like as an American punk or somebody into punk and metal and stuff, the scene, it's weird actually. The scene in the States is very outspoken on diversity. which is a great thing. But the scene itself isn't diverse at all. Whereas over the scene here, I find is extremely diverse. And yet nobody really even talks about it, right? And so there's that representation thing again, right? Or accessibility sort of thing.
When I asked you at the very beginning, kind of what brought you to Japan, you started with a story about music and how you got into this punk rock and metal scene in the United States. After the disaster up north in Fukushima and Iwate, you come to Tokyo and you finally get to enter that scene. You mentioned you had a band in Miyako, but I imagine the scene is probably small there.
Yeah.
So you finally can experience this in Japan and reconnect maybe with the bands that you had at Roboto back in Pittsburgh and meet all those people. You just described it as super diverse, but also not so represented. How was the scene when you kind of really discovered it in Tokyo?
In Tokyo? I mean, great. I've met so many people from so many different countries around the world. I'd argue that the male-female ratio is, the female-male ratio is significantly higher than what it is in the U.S. Mm-hmm. There's all the stripes of people. And whether or not they're announcing it is another thing. But, like, I don't think there's all that much in the way of, like, with regards to, like, LGBTQ stuff. I don't think there's all that much kind of, like, closeted. Of course, I'm maybe, like, speaking for putting words in other people's mouth, but it's really open, right? And I don't see that, in my experience, with a lot of what's going on right now. And granted, I live in Japan. I'm not always at, like, U.S. concerts, so I haven't seen it. But in my experience, the underground, like, independent music scene in Japan is really, really diverse. Like, almost aggressive, maybe not aggressively so, but, like, powerfully so.
I'm not a big metal or punk listener, so I don't really know too much of how that scene is. But it strikes me as a very emotionally expressive genre. That kind of, I see it a lot in maybe Europe, and people just release everything.
Yeah.
How does this kind of transfer to Japan?
Pretty well. Pretty well. Interestingly, I think too that coming from the tsunami, there was probably also a whole lot of catharsis in just, blisteringly loud sounds and everybody's bumping into each other and just like chaos, right? And being able to, there's like kind of a control element to that. Because there is etiquette at these concerts. It might not look like it, but nobody's trying to kill anybody. Actually, Osaka is doing great. I feel like Tokyo is a little bit quiet right now. It seems to me that a lot of the venues are sort of consolidating. Like, I have to book a year out now.
And you have no idea what's going to happen a year from now, so it's
no
kind of
clue.
super hard to kind of plan and book and confirm.
That right. And that's not for like festivals. That's for a 200-person concert with domestic bands only, sort of stuff. So Tokyo is definitely like, I feel like the scene has kind of honed in on a few venues, and I mean that's where having this type of data is really important, because it's not that there aren't venues, it's that everybody's only focused on these, and there's not all that much easily accessible information about the other ones. Mm-hmm. So they just kind of default to, Wildside or El Puente or, these are all places that I love, but my God, I don't want to wait a year. I want like three months. That's what I like. 3 months lead time. That's totally doable.
So you dive into that scene, connect with people, realize there's a lot of potential, and start gathering that data and try to put together sort of database where people can see where the venues are, when they're available, where the bands are, when they can play, and start organizing a lot of concerts.
Yeah. And so then in 2016, so that started working well, but, from a like investment point of view, going up to somebody with a little bit of cash to spend on you and being like, hey, guess what? I've got big data on heavy metal. Nobody understood what the hell I was doing. But fortunately enough, around, I guess it was 2016, is when the Akiya articles first started coming out. And I saw the same exact problem in Akiya that I see with heavy metal here, which is there's an entire ecosystem out there. Nobody's taking care of it. So it's not that it's just a bunch of garbage. It's you don't know what you're talking about. People are misconstruing the absence of evidence not being evidence of absence. they were misconstruing those things, right?
So those articles you're referring to are when we first started seeing like, oh, Japan has 8 million abandoned homes. What's going to happen?
The free houses
in Japan.
and that stuff.
And that's kind of being used now as a buzzword. And I feel like now it's really buzzing. And
Ooh, yeah, tell me about it. I have very strong opinions on the word akiya and the anglicization of it. I'll pat myself on the back. I had some really good arguments on Reddit about this. In Japanese, it's not really problematic. It's just a designation, right? Akiya, it doesn't even have to be akiya. It's just akiya, whatever. It's just vacant, not necessarily abandoned. It's not being used.
Nobody is living there.
Right. Usually it's about like 6 months of unuse, and then it just becomes aki. Whereas in the Anglosphere, you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's magic, Studio Ghibli and geisha and countryside and thatched roofs and traditional lifestyles and all this stuff that honestly I feel is like very Orientalist and doesn't recognize a lot. Number one, just like you don't even know what akiya means. Like, stop using it like it has a specific definition because it doesn't. But also it chooses, I feel like the anglicized word of akiya chooses, probably subconsciously, like not intentionally, but paints a picture that's maybe not false, but misleading, I think, and dangerous, actually. Not necessarily in the sense of like physical harm, but in, oh, you bought something and, oh, you didn't know what you were buying. There's oftentimes so much talk about community with regards to akiya, and it's usually in the sense of like a campus kind of thing, which I support. I'm working on projects right now that do this, but because I'm involved, we have a better understanding of things. And it doesn't really recognize the agency, and this is maybe a little bit too strong, but like the humanity of the people that already exist in that community. I think it's very gentrifying, tends to be. And the reason I think it's very important to understand the people who are already there is, you know what, sometimes your neighbor's just an asshole. And if they're not, then don't buy that. Find a place that actually works for you, number one. But more importantly is rural Japan is already really hard up. Like, it's not full of money. Like, we know this. And oftentimes there's like akiya themselves, oftentimes are haikyo, right? Like ruins and just totally dilapidated, unrectifiable, like dumpster fires. We don't need more of that. What we need is people coming in with, you know, acceptable levels of finance and resources to do something good with what I call like nascent infrastructure here, right? And the locals of those communities, when you come in and you're unprepared, well, unprepared or not, when you buy one of these things, the other people in that community are almost certainly going to be thinking, oh my God, finally somebody's doing something with it. This is going to be great. Maybe not that excited, but probably thinking like positively. And if you go in there, raise their hopes, and then don't follow through like some cheapskate, you don't just reset, you go worse, right? And then you get communities, these exist, where they don't want to sell akiya to other buyers because they've already been burnt by previous ones who were underprepared or unprepared.
2016, the articles come out, the words start buzzing, and you see a problem, a potential, and a solution.
Yeah.
You mentioned that a lot of people kind of, that it's kind of underrepresented. There's a network of houses, but it's all not very connected, similar to the problem with the venues for the music. Can you explain a little bit more what you saw at that time and where you saw the opportunity?
Well, I mean, I started looking at Miyako first. That was it. The two things that I wanted was, and to this day, I still try to, I don't think I can do enough to help Miyako out. To the day I die, like I'll try to support that place. But one being, there were a lot of people who were in the disaster homes, which I want to say border on like inhumane. Like that's emergency shelter. And the fact that people, I think it was like 3 years or so.
The same as in Noto. From the earthquake from last year.
Right. And so if there's akiya up there that are viable And like my friends, the punks up there, this is important. So they do something called Tohoku House Daisaksen. And what they did, this is maybe where I first actually started thinking about akiya. What they did is they in Miyako, Ofnato, and Ishinomaki, they identified, maybe not akiya, but similar in the sense that they identified buildings that had been hit by the wave and so were kind of uninhabitable, but were still structurally sound, right? So they just need to rebuild them or like throw some stuff at it. And so they found those in those three cities and made them into concert halls. Specifically because after you get food, after you get shelter, after you get fire, after you get clothing, you know, what is that pyramid of human needs?
Maslow's pyramid.
Yeah. After you get that first level, most people kind of just screw off and say, oh, well, I don't know, you got breakfast, lunch, and dinner now. You're okay. Right. But if you don't have, again, community build, and community isn't just like standing next to somebody and saying, hey, neighbor, there's activity involved. And you don't want to, if the only activity that you have is like this desperate shoveling of dirt to like, you know, find your life savings or whatever, that's not, I mean, that's that's trauma bonding. That's not necessarily like a positive thing. And so if there's no space for people to get together and, you know, celebrate or play music or, I don't know, play board games, whatever, then, well, having the food and the shelter, like, what does that really mean? Because you're not actually living, you're just persisting or subsisting.
Surviving.
Right. And so Tohoku House Daisaksen, there's a documentary movie that they made. And so once I started reading those stories, I wanted to help Miyako out. It's that. I just don't like dirty data. And so that was just like an annoying, like, I need to figure this out. What is it? Sort of thing. And then also me as a musician, I think a really excellent use case for akiya in general, but even the kind of shitty ones, is music studios or live houses, right? Used equipment, sound dampening. Nobody has to live there. It doesn't leak. If it's not a fire hazard, things like that, it can be kind of scuzzy and dirty. But how many punk rock venues are like pristine and clean?
Not that many.
It'd probably be a step up in most cases, right? But because again, there's so few space. Miyako had a strange number of music studios, only one or two performance spaces. And oftentimes, especially in rural Japan, what you'll find is they'll have basically a soundproofed room with nothing in it. And so you got to you either have to rent your gear or buy all of it, which can be very pricey. And then you also have the logistics of moving it in, loading out, which really just prevents most people from using it. And so if you buy up akiya, outfit them get a used house, get some used equipment, right? A used drum kit, used amps, that'll cost you $10,000 maybe, right? And so for a pretty reasonable amount of money, you can make like a local business, right? That also functions as like a community center, a gathering place, like honestly a place to congregate for people outside of Tokyo, right? Because I mean, for me, what I see with rural Japan, I don't know if I'm going to call it a problem, but like the issue that gets in the way a lot is it's very deterministic. And it says that, well, like we're just a rural city, we're a rural village, we don't have anything to do, and so it's boring. The solution, I say, is, well, then make something interesting. Like, and do it, you know, you don't have to have some big government budget to, you know, do that kind of stuff. Just get, again, like 10,000 baht, like 100, like 100,000 yen, like 1 million, 2 million yen, right? To make and that, you want to talk about sustainable business practice as well? That's kind of set it and forget it, right? And two, you want to talk about the aging problem. If you want kids like me, when I was 14 and discovered international music in Japan, and then I ended up moving over here, give them concerts.
Give them a place to hang out.
Yeah, right? If they don't have that, they're just not going to do it. It's not because they don't want to. It's not because it's strictly because it's not an option. But if you just give them the option, then it might work. Of course, you don't want to go, you know, willy-nilly and say, okay, put it there, right? Have some intelligence, data backing up what your decisions are in order to, buy that akiya and buy this equipment, and then I can make that into a sound studio that will probably, every business venture is a little bit risky, but if you do your homework, do your due diligence, like that's a very sustainable business model that can get younger people into entrepreneurialism as well. That's ownership of a property that they don't, like for a graduation present. What if, mom and dad didn't buy you a car, but they bought you a business?
Could be an interesting investment.
Sort of thing. And so that's really what I see, the intersection of akiya and music and tsunamis.
This is kind of where it all converges into akiya.
Well, so it's potential. That's what it is. It's potential. And that's the energy of the tsunami. It's potential. It's potential energy. It's not yet kinetic, but if you just give it the means to become kinetic, then, well, it would, right? But right now, there's all this energy just locked up in this nascent infrastructure across, maybe not all of it, because it's not that every spot is the same. It's an unfortunate truth, but some places are more viable than others right now. So I try to identify those areas and focus on them with the intent of, if you build those up sufficiently over 5-10 years, then you can go to the spots that are less viable and help them, and then step by step.
You mentioned that some rural communities are self-deterministic and kind of have this negative outlook. The properties are abandoned, don't know what to do with this. There's nothing around here. In the West, you talked about this Orientalism. It's often talked about this dream, this Ghibli dream, to have this little house in the countryside in Japan, thatched roofed and whatnot. What is being really misunderstood about this akiya? We talked about the term itself, but the reality of it. Some areas are more viable than others, you mentioned. What is like an interesting project, a project that you see as this is worth a sort of investment that is not like just a dream, a fantasy, that is not just a dump of money, but like, okay, this is how I evaluate, this makes sense.
I think I'm seeing, maybe for the first time, there's a lot of Americans who are very confident in their ability to DIY things. And I tend to avoid them because that's not the point, right? And it's still early days for this. It's very early days. Like akiya is now kind of a thing, whatever. But rural Japan is still extremely early. I mean, yeah, Miyako is popping off right now, but like that's really kind of about it. And so understanding, like, I don't want DIYers out there right now. I want, again, like you have kind of deep pockets and you're willing to outsource to professionals to make that thing, which historically has been considered unviable, thus akiya, into something that's viable. Great. Let's work together. Spend that money. Get out there and go do it. I don't want people coming in with, it's not to say that I don't want to have like affordable housing and things. No, that's a great goal to have. But right now, rural Japan is really, I've said it before, but I'll say it again, really hard up. And it doesn't need adventurous, DIYers who may or may not succeed in, buying a ryokan or a kominka. Like the kominka thing, that makes me very worried often. They're fire hazards. That's not to say that I don't like kominka. I like kominka. If you don't have like at least $1 million US to throw into that kominka, hands off. You're going to burn it down, probably.
Especially with social media, this is being talked about a lot. And you mentioned foreign investors wanting to buy up these houses for cheap. You see the ads going through Instagram, $3,000, $5,000 free. But I often wonder, let's say someone has the money to buy a cheap akiya, but oftentimes they don't even live in Japan at the moment. So they come here and they buy this, and it feels like they're buying it to make a YouTube video out of it. Like, oh, I renovated this, but then what?
And they're not thinking about. This is the second time that I may do this, but I'm probably putting words in their mouth. But if you're coming here to be a YouTuber, that seems like a very narcissistic pursuit. And so I have to wonder, like, even if you're professing to have your interests in the local community, like, to what extent are you just using them? And to what extent does it actually matter as well is another thing that's, I think, a legitimate question to ask. But I think right now, I can't precisely define it, but there's, I think, a lack of, word I want to use is like education about what's possible, what are akiya, number one. What is possible? What are the resources, not necessarily financial, but like if you do this thing, it's not just buying a house and then it's done, right? You're going to need, there's renovations, there's this, that, and the other thing. There's probably starting a business. How do you do that? Do you know the difference between a shiho shoshi and gyosei shoshi? What about tax? Blah, 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 blah. Having that package put together, I mean, we offer that, right? Which is one reason why we charge a premium. Also, too, I charge a premium because I want to make sure that you have money in your bank account. Right. Again, I feel kind of bad, especially coming from like a punk rock background where everybody's an anarchist, right? But straight up, like, if you screw this up, I'm not going to forgive you, sort of thing.
Because then the local community is burned.
Exactly.
And they don't want anyone else to
And
come.
it gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
There are some success stories. Some people have shared their journey to rural Japan, buying, renovating, living in, and kind of connecting.
Tokyo, he's good. I've worked with him. He definitely does good work. I like what I've seen Anton doing in Tokyo. I think is quality stuff.
What makes this project successful is the connection to community.
Yeah.
Is this my question then would be, considering there are 8 million of these homes, 9, and the number is growing. Some are, you mentioned, just complete hazard, destroyed. There's nothing that can be done to save them. You can't turn 8 million homes into music venues. So on a larger scale, how is this challenge going to be addressed of dealing with those properties?
Okay, yeah, this is a good one. You're talking about use case. So a music venue, obviously went over that. Residents, okay, cool. Then there's, like the larger campus size thing, which is basically like apartments. The project I'm working on right now in Yugawara is we acquired a ryokan. I think ryokan are extremely attractive right now.
So just so that people, but also an akiya is not necessarily just a small kominka, farmhouse.
Right,
it's
exactly.
an empty building, so it can be
it could be a bowling alley, man. Like whatever. I've seen akiya I feel like bowling alleys should probably just be demolished because nobody wants to buy that, but it could be.
Like that's an empty building, basically.
Yeah.
Could be a school too.
Right. And so let me plug a few friends. A few in Yugawara. So my favorite butcher shop for GBA, like wild game meat. There are 3 butcher sisters in Tokyo, and they realized that the city of Atami and Yugawara, which is right, so it's what, Atami, Shizuoka, and Yugawara is still Kanagawa. Chitosegawa is the one that splits them. But both of those municipal governments pay to kill deer and boar.
Overpopulation.
Yeah, overpopulation, right? But all they do is pay to kill. So they got carcasses, they got bodies, that's it. I don't know what they were doing with them, but they weren't eating them. Rotting somewhere, right? And so the 3 butcher sisters in Tokyo realized, hey, wait a minute, that's just free meat. Give it to us. We'll sell it. We'll process it and sell it. So they bought an akiya up in the woods and turned it into a butcher, like a processing facility.
Wow.
And I think it was 3 years. They started the business. They already got acquired. They're still operating, but they got bought. Best meat, some of the best meat I've ever had. But yeah, it's just like this kick-ass story of like, wait a minute, there's 3 butcher sisters in the woods in an abandoned house. What? They're called Yama no Megumi. Super good. I say go eat them. They have an online shop. Similarly, Humans Beer. I think breweries are like relatively popular right now. This is a very good one because Yama no Megumi bought more or less just like kind of a dinky house. Nothing really wrong with it, but it's just kind of like not great and very small. So it served their purposes. They don't need much space. But also in Yugawara, there was a seaside abandoned fish processing facility. Nobody thought you could sell that. But if you make beer, you just need to put your tanks in there.
And you've got the space to do it.
Oh, yeah. And so Humans Beer, based in Yugawara, also one of my my go-to stories about akiya success that's outside of just living the rural life. There's Kasamatsu Farms, which was a really sad story about.
Oh, with Byron?
Yeah.
He came on a podcast.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. Yep. So that's also an excellent success story. I don't know if it's just Japan or worldwide or somehow more global, but a house is a house is a house is a house. And a house is something that a family, which is a married couple and a child, or maybe two, live in. And it is approximately 80 to 100 square meters, probably 2 stories. And that's a house. You eat breakfast there, and you have your stone or bed, and you leave it in the morning to go to work, and you come back to it tonight to sleep. That is a house.
Mm-hmm.
That is its function. It will never be anything but that. That is all that it can be. It's space, dude.
And it's 4 walls and a roof, and you can do anything with it.
Just do something.
I feel that this akiya situation in the Western media is discussed mostly as a dream from wealthy people to kind of retire in rural Japan. And in Japan, I'm not so sure how this is being discussed. You just gave examples of Japanese people using spaces creatively to start new businesses. Are there kind of more, is there like a government effort as well to kind of facilitate startups in these spaces?
Yeah, but I can't speak highly of any of the ones that I know. That's not to like try to dump on government initiatives, but like they're not, if they were working, they'd already be working kind of thing.
So from your experience now working in that and gathering that data, connecting all the dots, what do you see as the big blocker for more of these success stories?
Bureaucracy. And I've been playing around. I just published an article about it recently of like, I feel like public-private partnership isn't yet where we need to be because that gives a lot of power to the public, which is to say the government. And again, I don't dislike government, but they're very slow, very bureaucratic, and they really don't understand new things, which gets in the way of new things. And so I don't think I like this phrase yet, but the one I've been playing around with is public-private tolerance, which is like just start your own little thing and, you know, don't be a jerk and do good business and, you know, maybe not like more than baby steps, more than toddler steps, but not a full gallop sort of thing. Because we need front runners. That's the problem. The stories exist. They don't get told, I don't think, or at least distributed very often. Or even kind of successful. I mean, that's a nice thing that you guys have going. You have proper gear. That's good. Not just to like say, oh, we spent a bunch of money, but like, oh no, you actually can make quality content. And a lot of, I mean, I think this is what the YouTuber thing is definite, but like 90% definitely a positive thing is showcasing what high quality content looks like. And honestly, high quality content doesn't need to be like that expensive. I learned how to shoot and edit and all that stuff during coronavirus because all the venues
were
closed down. And so we were doing a bunch of like paid live streaming and production, editing, sound editing and all that stuff. And so I learned how to run and gun with, you know, kind of a bare minimum. I mean, like the backpack that I brought today is basically just chock full of audio and visual sort of thing. So if you just have that, I'd like to see more of that. It's not even necessarily encouraging more people to do more cool stuff. I want to see that, but encouraging people to like engage with cool new stuff that somebody else already did.
So the stories need to be told. People need to see them interact, and then go to the butcher in the mountain cabin, to go to the brewery and visit and experience it for themselves.
Or the phrase that I've been using recently is like cultural custodians, right? Like, and this is the shokunin kind of
the craftsman
difficulty, I guess, is, wow, you make a really good product and you're just terrible at selling it. Nobody knows. So like, why are you even making the product?
You need to put yourself out there, right? If nobody knows what you're doing, then nobody comes to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. So like, why bother making the product in the first place? Which brings to mind this hot sauce.
So this is one of your products. I've seen you talk about this recently.
Yes. So this is just white label, right?
White label.
A friend of mine makes really good hot sauce.
Okay.
And doesn't get as much distribution as I think they should anyway. And
Pain sauce.
yeah. And
Maybe we
so-
should do the podcast just like what hot ones and just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
drink
right.
this while talking. I don't know how far we'll get, but
Yeah. But yeah, just having, and it's great branding. So that's my band's hot sauce. Right?
okay.
My band's name is Worship Pain. So we made pain sauce. Right.
So you've done many ventures now here in Japan, or a few, or have been involved in
few.
the entrepreneurship community. Hot sauce, akiyas. What are some of the big challenges you've kind of seen for people to kind of get started? I feel like it always seems to be the discussion always revolves around like the bureaucratic things and the visa things if you're coming from overseas. But let's say you have your company established. How is this ecosystem kind of coming together with startups?
Again, it's that word determinism.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way to do something is go bureaucratic. And then you go bureaucratic. And then you wait 5 years. And then, or maybe not that long, but like it just takes a long, long time to get anything done. Whereas if it's not at all the move fast, break stuff, but like run when you can and try not to fall over. Rather than it just being, I feel like a lot of business in Japan gets kind of, when it's getting started, is almost geriatric in that, metaphorically speaking, it's like, all right, here's the wheelchair that you sit in, and just let somebody push you in the direction of business. And then that's business. And I mean, that works certainly for a lot of business, actually. But for kind of stoking, new, more creative, kind of adventurous, by definition, it can't be that. And so having some kind of support systems, be that podcasts that talk about this stuff, be that like I do retreats and we talk about these things there.
While eating hot sauce.
While eating hot sauce and the beer and the wild boar meat.
Sounds like a perfect combo.
Yeah, it's really good. But being able, I don't want to sound like Pied Piper or something, but like having pathfinders or like scouts, as it were, who can be like, hey, here's this crazy thing over here. Let's go check it out safely so that if it doesn't work out, we can still survive.
Well, safely, that's kind of the interesting aspect of it. I feel from the few entrepreneurs we've talked to, there's very little of a safety net for entrepreneurs in Japan.
Very little.
So if you take the risk
Yeah.
to try to find innovative solutions to an existing problem, like you trying to address the akiya challenge with new solutions, if you fail, which let's say in America is kind of seen as a good thing, like you try, you fail, you try, you fail, you try, you fail, you succeed.
Yeah.
If you fail here, it's very hard to bounce back or to kind of.
Well, and I mean that's look, I'm like a white American guy in Japan, so like the rules that I'm playing by are different than the rules that like your standard Japanese.
I'm talking generally also like for Japanese entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
So kind of
I mean, yeah, true. I think that there just needs to be more. I mean, support, but the support's not as much as I support government programs. I can't see, or I can't really easily imagine them playing a very big role in near-term successes, just because, not that they're bad or anything, but just like the nature of that particular beast is slow moving, and this is kind of how it goes. So what are the other, I definitely don't want to suggest like getting rid of any of that. No, absolutely not. But what can we tack on to it? Where's the menu of kind of support systems that, go, it's like a spicy level, like from 0 to 10 of bureaucratic.
Which is interesting because those government support and startup cities like Fukuoka started, I think, originally with the startup visa and so on, is often what gets things started in a way, even though it is very administrative, but it somehow puts the spotlight on the area. Like, oh, maybe entrepreneurship is possible in this. And then maybe people start talking, and then maybe you see success stories.
Well, and I also think, too, that there's possibly like an over-sexification of startups.
Okay.
In that, what is that? Probably to your average person, it's like, oh, tech and new Facebook and like we're going to be Google 2.0.
The unicorns.
Yeah, the unicorns and all that stuff. Dude, that hot sauce sells pretty well.
And it's a startup. You created a recipe and you made your sauce.
Yeah, I didn't even create the recipe. I just like requested that it be made for my band and then sell it. Like all I did was the branding.
Okay. How many Scoville is this?
A lot.
A lot. Is
Half the time,
is it written or is it a secret?
The reaction, I actually don't know how many Scovilles, but I can tell you that the typical first reaction that I get when people try this for the first time is coughing.
I'm glad we don't have a spoon right now that I don't have to try it.
I've got an open bottle if you want to try it, but
Maybe.
probably not. I've heard that it takes about 15 minutes for the pain to subside.
You say you've heard, so are you trying?
Oh, I eat this stuff every day. It goes great on natto. It goes really good on natto. Yeah.
So that's a startup in a way.
Yeah, and so I think that there's pressure maybe to have, especially like an IT thing, which, as unfortunate as it is to say, like Japan's domestic IT like ecosystem is not like, it's got some work to do. And so if it's trying to pursue all of these super top level kind of things, but kind of without necessarily the at least domestic resources and like training, that's a good way to set yourself up for failure, sort of thing. And too, man, Japan is very much a hardware country, and shokunin and physical products and all of that stuff. This hot sauce, I can keep pointing at the hot sauce. I think it's such a good example of the type of things that actually are not even relatively, like pretty damn easy just to start running with. Very low risk. And am I selling it and getting money? And is that happening? Yes. Okay, it's business. Right?
By definition, it is, yeah.
Yeah. And so finding things like that, which again, maybe aren't like the sexiest of types of business to do, but are very easy to execute on and very easy to, dare I say, like succeed with, that I want more of that. Like you don't have to be, the next Bitcoin or whatever. You can just make hot sauce. Right. And I'll tell you what, like we sell this online, but I just always keep like 2 or 3 bottles on me. Go to business meetings, go to concerts, go to bars, go to restaurants and whatnot. Invariably, somebody starts talking about hot sauce. And I'll just be there like, oh, hey,
by the way,
I got some. You want to taste it? Here you go. Give them a taste. They like it.
They cough for 15 minutes, then they like it.
Then they buy it. And I think it's the first time that I've done, maybe this is also an important thing. It's basically like door-to-door salesmanship, except I'm just really jazzed that I have a spicy hot sauce for my band. So I'm like visibly excited about it.
And you'd like to share that, and that's how you sell.
Yeah. Right. And I don't think I see that, like the NHK guy is maybe the second best salesman in that way.
You've had that experience in Iwate with the tsunami. You came to Tokyo, discovered the underground music scene there, brought that together through big data, branched out into analyzing the akiya ecosystem. What are you working on now? What's next?
So, all right, this is really exciting.
Just a teaser, maybe.
Okay. No.
All right,
I'm going to protect it. I'm going to protect it.
And when this episode is out, we'll kind of make sure that people kind of get to follow you and see a little bit what you're up to and what's next.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of great things. You're still helping your community back up there. Is this kind of what you thought your life would be in Japan when you kind of decided to follow your punk rock dream?
No, because let's bring it back to what kind of started the conversation, which is that tiny island.
Yeah, Ogasawara?
Yeah, Ogasawara. That was the first, because I'd been to Japan 2 times, I think, prior to that. So like I knew what, hanging out and living in a hotel, or not even living, but, staying in hotels, like being a tourist. The first idea in my head, though, like concrete image of my life in Japan was Ogasawara. Because that's the first thing that I was fed of substance, like Gilligan's Island kind of thing. Although I am very curious too. I've been exploring the Tokyo Islands, specifically Hachijojima recently. I'm slowly moving. Honestly, I kind of feel like I need to go. it's like the go daigo thing.
Yeah.
The pivot happened when I chose to not go to Ogasawara.
And everything happened from...
And so like something's waiting there for me. I don't know what it is, but I'm kind of excited.
We covered a lot of topics today. Do you feel like there's something important maybe that you wanted to bring up, that you wanted to dive into, that I didn't ask you about?
I don't think so. Is there anything else, like maybe?
Maybe there is. And if there is, I guess we'll have you for another round.
All right.
And continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Matt, it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing and that story, that kind of your turning point in your life in Iwate.
Yeah, and so maybe is there like a message? Or I feel like those are really important points. They're difficult. I can't like recommend it, but be on the lookout for those moments.
Your Odaigo moments.
Yeah, your Odaigo moments. Right. And they'll happen. And sometimes they're mundane. Sometimes they're huge, like a tsunami. Sometimes they're not, right? But there's progress or steps in your life. And some things kind of don't matter. Some things do matter a lot. Sometimes you can rewind, sometimes you can't. And just like, yeah, I don't know. That's important, I think. That's not nearly as good a statement as I was hoping it was going to
be. Be present and observe your surroundings and what's happening.
Yeah, you know what I was saying.
Matt, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll be back in the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future conversations. And we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this episode, here are a couple more that we think you'll enjoy. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you next time.